Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Ontario Cryptids. I'm glad you're here because this week I've got 3 fascinating encounter stories to share, all centered around the mysterious hairy people of the forest. These are some truly intriguing accounts you won't want to miss. If you're new or a returning viewer and haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, so you'll never miss another upload. And as always, if you've got an encounter of your own, my viewers and I would love to hear about it. Send your stories to ontariocryptids@gmail.com. Now sit back and relax, and let's get into these incredible encounter stories. I haul oil from the well pads to Steubenville, Ohio. I've been running this route twice a day, Monday to Friday, for the past 10 months. I know this route. There's an 84 lumber yard business below the highway. There are railroad tracks behind 84 lumber store. I was northbound on 7 crossing the bridge. I looked out the driver's window with the elevated view. Standing in the middle of the track was a very large Bigfoot with brown hair from head to toe, with black hair or muddy hair on his chest. The Bigfoot was looking up the hill. I called out on the CB radio to get someone else to look and confirm what I just saw. I was driving 55, so 1.5 seconds is not a lot of time. The 2 things that stood out was its totally brown hair except a dark black on its chest. The other is the size of its shoulder caps on its arm. It was the size of a basketball. After getting my second load from the well pad, I arrived at Tidewater in Steubenville to unload in the rail cars. I was able to stand in the railroad tracks next to the oil rail cars. They are very large, and I was able to put my hands 8 feet up in the air next to the rail cars. The Bigfoot was taller. I'm 6'6", and I must put this Bigfoot no smaller than 9 feet tall. At first, I was thinking it was a dude in a suit or a hunting outfit, but no, it couldn't have been. Everything is green, and it was turkey season. You don't wear all brown and long hair suit to hunt turkeys. What I saw that day is still on my mind. I would like to show a photo I have that one of my game cameras took on Wednesday, August 20th of 2025 at 12:30 p.m. I live in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, about 15 minutes west of town. The photo shows what looks to me like a Bigfoot. That's the only way I know to describe it. I was alerted via my iPhone that my camera had taken a picture because motion was detected. As soon as I pulled up the image to see what had triggered it, I was immediately curious because I could see something huge standing in the middle of the creek. I quickly went to show my wife, who I was eating lunch with at the time. She agreed it looked like something huge, but she couldn't quite make out what it could be. I loaded up the live view option on this camera since it was cellular capability. By the time it had pulled up the view of the creek approximately 10 to 15 seconds later, the creature had already gone. It was no longer in the frame. I had to go back to work after lunch until 5 that afternoon. After work, I called my brother and told him to meet me and we could go down to the creek and try to see what this was. When we got there, we started looking for footprints and found none on the banks. Whatever it was appeared to have stayed in the water the entire time. Unfortunately, the creek bottom in this area is extremely coarse and has nothing but fist-sized creek gravel, so the ability to see any type of footprint was very difficult. The water, this time of the year is about waist to ankle deep and flows at a pretty quick pace. I had my brother stand where the creature was standing and try to replicate the image of him, at which point we realized the creature was several feet taller than my brother, who is 6 feet tall. My brother's head didn't even cover half of the background that this thing covered in the original picture. It was much, much taller and at least 2-3 times wider than my brother. We see deer out on the farm all the time, but we knew this was not a deer for obvious size reasons. This thing appears to be facing the camera, standing up on 2 legs. Just to make sure we did our investigation due diligence, we went out about 2 days later and took another picture of my brother standing in the same spot. But this time, we took it with the game camera itself instead of my iPhone, and at the same time of the day. The images are similar. Same camera from the same angle on different days. The water level was a few inches lower, but otherwise the condition and lighting were basically the same. This thing was still several feet taller than my brother. I set up this cellular trail camera so that I could easily check the water level of creek through my phone app, but this camera can detect motion as well. It has only ever detected motion and taken photos when small branches and leaves right in front of it triggered it when blowing in the breeze. There were several images sent that day that were triggered by blowing leaves. This creature happened to be in the creek when the camera was triggered by the leaves at this moment. The creature was approximately 100 feet away from the camera, which is too far to trigger it. I normally do not pay too much attention to the notifications from this camera because the purpose of it is to look over the creek so I can see if the creek is flooding during rainstorms, in which case I would quickly return home to drag my kayaks and camping gear up away from the creek itself. The camera is far enough away from the creek and banks that no animal have ever triggered it simply by walking in the water or on the sides of the creek. This camera sits on the north end of our 700-acre family farm. This property is totally private and there is no access to the creek area unless you walk about 3/4 of a mile through the woods from the county road I live on. We've owned the property since the mid-80s, and I have never had any issues with trespassers down in this area. For one, this particular area is extremely secluded and difficult to get to. It's also completely fenced off, and I have no trespassing signs everywhere out on the property. We scoured the banks up and down the creek several hundred yards both directions, but couldn't tell where it had left the waterway. We have heard stories over the years from several people out in this direction that they have seen what appeared to be a Bigfoot. I have always been genuinely curious but never pursued the validity of those statements myself because it was just never on my radar until it showed up accidentally on a game cam that was set up for the purpose of checking the water levels. The cameras had been down there about 3 or 4 weeks. We had lost a kayak earlier in the summer and realized we needed a way to be able to tell when the water was rising so we can remove the kayaks ahead of time. This camera is so far down away from anything that it only has 1 bar of cellular service. Therefore, it will only send standard definition pictures of anything rather than high definition. If I had a memory card in at the time, I could have saved those pictures in high resolution, but that was never my goal. I wasn't trying to see deer antlers or turkey or anything like that, so standard low definition images worked just fine for me simply looking at the water levels. This creature is several feet taller than my brother, who's 6 feet tall, as well as 2 or 3 times wider. It's colored brown and black. It is standing on 2 legs, has 2 arms, and appears to be walking towards the camera. I believe we captured a Bigfoot. Hello. I'm not sure if this is a Bigfoot, but after reviewing native animal noises, we just can't think of anything else other than a Bigfoot. Sorry if this is a bit long as well. To begin with, my friend and I went to a hike on Ice Lake in Silverton, Colorado. It's a fairly rough terrain with many switchbacks and rocky surfaces and high inclines. It took us about 3 hours to reach the top. We met many backpackers and hikers on the way up, and many settled at the top. We sat at the lake for a good 10 minutes before realizing the clouds were getting darker and started descending the mountain. We were the last hikers to go down the trail, as many were just backpackers that just camped near the lake. To help you visualize, this hiking trail had about 5 levels, one being the base level of aspen trees and light terrain with a lot of switchbacks. Second being a small valley that was fairly easy to walk through. Third being a deep forest with heavy inclines, rocky terrain, many trees, and a bit darker as sunlight didn't make its way through like the other levels. First picture with the dog is the environment of this level. Fourth being a larger valley with a creek and a heavy rocky incline, not even a trail really, just climbing up rocks. This is the second and third picture where you can see the third level of heavy forest in the back. The fourth picture is also the beginning of the third level descending down. Fifth, of course, is the top with the lake. As we were descending, we passed the fifth and fourth levels quietly before reaching the third. Our legs were tired and we decided to sit down on a log. Before sitting down, my friend heard this loud growl, while I thought it was an owl hooting. We decided to let that thought go. Well, as we sat down, we heard coyotes yipping up near the entrance to the third level. We weren't exactly scared, but I had my dog with me, and I didn't want him to get hunted or attacked by some coyotes. So we got up and started walking down quickly. This went on for about 15 minutes, and then we decided to slow our pace as they were far away now. We made it to the middle area of the third level and began talking again. The coyotes are still yapping away. After about 5 minutes of this, we kind of stopped because we noticed the forest went silent and the hairs on our bodies were up. A few seconds later, we heard a large whoop sound, like a primate would make at a zoo. I looked back at my friend to ask what it was, in probably the most scared voice you can talk with. And she just looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "Run." Our fight or flight responses kicked in immediately and we were flying down the switchbacks. I was thinking of every possible animal it could be, but nothing seemed to match from what I've heard. I kept looking up to see if I can see what it was, but there was nothing, even though plenty of branches were breaking above us, and that honestly is the scariest feeling I've ever felt. We booked it down the third level while hearing branches snapping above us, which only fueled our adrenaline more. I think we went down 2.5 levels in about 30 minutes, which would have taken us 2 hours to get to. We made it to the bottom and she stopped to look up towards the aspen trees. I turned around to see if she was okay, and I just see her running down the hill because she heard more branches breaking behind us. We got in the car and started talking about it, and we figured it was an animal like a marmot or a grouse, maybe a moose. But after reviewing the sounds, no animal sounds native to the area were matching what we heard, because it was like a primate sound. We thought it's a Bigfoot, but can't actually say for sure. We also figured there would be other hikers that were possibly joking around, but there were coyotes up there, so we let that opinion go as well. Any thoughts or ideas? We don't have video, picture, audio because we were terrified in that moment, but I did add some pictures of what the trail looks like to get a good grasp of what the environment we were in. I'm sorry if this is a little confusing, but honestly, gathering up all this information took a lot when your brain was running on straight adrenaline, LOL. My phone definitely made the pictures brighter than they actually were. I honestly would never wish that feeling of being hunted on anyone. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. I hope you enjoy these 3 fascinating stories of the hairy people of the forest. They truly remind us of how much mystery still hides within the wilderness. A big thank you goes out to the current channel members for their support, and it is truly appreciated. Thank you guys so much. If you're a returning viewer and haven't subscribed yet, please remember to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And if you had an encounter of your own, we'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Wishing you all a fantastic week ahead, and make sure to come back next week for more mysterious tales from Ontario Cryptids.